a statement there of, if we needed one, I don't think we necessarily did, of Formartine's title credentials?
I think so. I mean, as we know from the previous show, I thought Brechin would bounce back from losing to Fraserburgh, but Formartine were terrific. I mean, the fact that Brechin take the lead with such a terrific goal from Ewan Loudon as well, you're thinking, oh well, it's going to be business as usual here. Yep. Brechin back on top, but Formartine came back at them in 2 goals in 5 minutes, and then a third one before the break. They were very good for their value for money for them.
We've talked in the last couple of seasons with Stuart Anderson about Formartine's character. There's a steeliness there, totally reflecting that second goal to go 2-1 up, the Julian Wade goal. But it took a few bites to force that one over the line.
It did, but you're right. I mean, Formartine have got the bit between their teeth, and there's so many goal scorers in that team now. This is evident. Everyone was trying to get in the act, and before it was finally forced home. But they're good. They're looking very good at the moment.
Julian Wade was talking to Callum at the end of the week, previewing the game with Brechin, about he's from Dominica International, as has been much discussed by us probably over the years. About adapting and still having to adapt to the coldness and the weather conditions. I mean, if he's still adapting,
it's got to be some player.
He doesn't show it, does he? Because even the goal to go 3-1 up for Formartine, the little deft nod, he's a cracking player.
He's outstanding, I think. And he had a good season up at Brechin when he first arrived, but I think he's even come on further. Yeah. Under Stuart Anderson at Formartine, he's a great outball for you. If you can be under pressure, he can stretch a team instantly with a pace in behind. But he's also a very handy finisher and a very good link-up man, as we're seeing.
I suppose on the other side of things, as well as both teams showing like cracking attacking play, if you were Stuart Anderson or new Brechin manager Gavin Price, your criticism would perhaps be naive defending throughout the game from both sides. I mean, neither side will be happy with conceding 3 and 4 goals. I think obviously there was the mitigating factor of Rhys Thomas kind of rashly getting himself 2 bookings and getting sent off. But both teams want to be more solid. I think with Brechin in particular, is this probably the last kind of couple of games we've had on the cameras? Is this perhaps the most vulnerable we've seen them look defensively in there since I can remember in their time in the Highland League?
I would say, I don't know if it's the change of manager, because obviously they were so rigid and so hard to score against under Andy Kirk. Gavin Price is a different kind of manager, but as you see, they have periods where they're well on top and creating lots of chances. I mean, Grady McGrath could have had a couple early in the game. But are they leaving the door open at the back? I don't know. Is it almost like the sweeper keeper scenario we've ever seen?
Lenny Wilson did come out a few times.
There were a few incidents where they left themselves exposed, and I would imagine that's probably what they'll be looking to address in training this week.
I think we've mentioned this previously before we move on to the second game, but another reminder there in that game of it doesn't feel like this season. I mean, just looking at the table alone and how many games teams have lost already, teams with title aspirations, it's not going to be one of those seasons to me where one team goes on this endless winning run to sort of and ends up the season where like it's 1 loss, it's 2 losses maybe that are required to win the title. It looks like it's going to be a lot more competitive. There's perhaps going to be a lot more teams in it this season.
There's a lot of cooks in this kitchen for the Highland League title. That's what's becoming obvious. I mean, we were looking at Brechin a couple of weeks ago saying, they've got the games in hand, you'll expect them to kick on and they can pull clear, and they've lost back to back. We're looking at Bucky, they've only played 11 games. If they win their matches in hand, they're in a strong position. But they've got a Scottish Cup tie to look forward to. They haven't played since the draw was made. We don't know if they're going to have one eye on that. There's going to be lots of twists and turns in the weeks and months ahead. And it'd be a very brave man to predict who's coming out on top of this race.
Another cracking game of football, as Ross Jack touched upon in his post-match comments, a great advert for the Highland League. Both teams going for it right to the end. Colin Charlesworth's first game in charge of Huntly after Alan Hale's departure. I suppose if you're both teams, you probably come away from that, and if you're Rothes, you think we were 3-1 up in that game and we've only got a point out of it. But if you're Huntly, you're also thinking we're 3-1 down, we got back to 4-3 pretty late on, we've only got a point out of the game. Like a little bit of frustration, but at the same time, as I said, like
for us, it's brilliant.
That's what we want. Yeah.
More, please. Ross Jack will be furious because he prides himself on his teams being solid at the back, hard to beat. He's gone away from home and watched his side score 4 times and not win a game. Yeah, he'll be raging. As good as an advert as it may be for the Highland League, I'm sure he wasn't thinking that when he made the trip back home afterwards. Colin Charlesworth, he'll be delighted with the fight back because they were in a tough place at 3-1 down, but then to take the lead and not hold on, yeah, that'll be sore. But both teams clearly defensively, there's work to be done this week ahead of the next time they're back in action.
A couple of goals from Angus Grant for Huntly. He was obviously out injured for a long time. Good to see. I think the pick of the goals for me though was Huntly's goal to make it 3-3. 3-3? Yeah. From Andy Hunter. Just the finish is obviously, it's like a close range finish on the turn in the bottom corner, well executed, but it's more the way he controls the ball. The ball obviously comes over the defender just in front of him. This little chest, little flick around the corner. It was class.
Well, it is. We were joking on the chat amongst the guys in the sports desk that if that had been like a top level international player, you'd be going, oh, check the skill on display here. It is terrific. But I mean, it shows the form, the confidence that Andy Hunter has at the minute. He's such a threat, and from a goal where, or should I say, a ball into the box where he's got so much to do, to not only turn away from practically the whole Rothes defence, but then finish it as well as he does, just epitomises how good a run of form he's in at the minute. Yeah,
I'm going to say something willfully wrong here potentially, but I think that must be him on 14 or 15 goals for the season. Unless I've forgotten some game where he scored even more and he's higher.
No, I think
I remember him being on 13 goals, so I mean he's having a cracking season. Jake Thompson, it should be said as well, his goal to make it 2-0 Rothes, where he just lifted it over the keeper, I thought was decent as well. But yeah, 4 other games from the weekend to discuss. Obviously the weather. What did the weather call off? Buckie against Clanacudden. Well, the authorities called it off, but the weather had a hand. Buckie Thistle against Clanacudden, Bro Rangers against Nairn, Wick Academy against Banksday. They were all off. But Inverurie Locos won, Turriff 4. That was quite I suppose the obvious reason why that
feisty's the one we're looking for.
It was a feisty game, but the root of that was Warren Cummins, the new Turriff United manager, getting the better of former Turriff boss Dean Donaldson, who left the Hawks to go to Harlow Park where the game was played and be the Locos manager. Ewan Clark sent off on 13 minutes for an altercation with stand-in Locos goalie and goalie coach John Thacker. I think he's a goalie coach. But then Liam Strachan puts 10-man Turriff ahead with a long-range opener. The goals are available. Tom Reid was then sent off for Locos for a bad tackle, so that was both teams down to 10 men. But then Miles Gaffney's penalty rebound made it 1-1 after the break. Callan Gray stunner, another great goal, and a Rhys McKeown double made the points safe for Turriff in that second period. It's a great win for Turriff, and they're scoring goals. It's 12 goals in their last 2 games. When I look at the table, and Turriff they're right up there. They're just behind Huntly, or they're level in points with Huntly, although they've played a game more. 8th position, they're having a great season, and it almost feels like the change of manager hasn't affected them too much.
Well, I think Warren had a tough start. I think it was it 1 win in his first 5, I think it was. But since then, they seem to be clicking into gear. Maybe it's just settling down under a new manager. The same thing we're probably looking for Gavin Price to have with Brechin City. But yeah, Turriff are motoring along nicely now. And I think if the season was to finish now and Turriff were 8th, you would look and go, it's been a very good season for everyone at the Hawks.
Locos had 3 wins in the spin since getting their first one under Dean. I suppose this is maybe just a little bit of a sort of reminder there's still work to be done, moving in the right direction. Mitigating factor again in this game that they're without Zach Ellis, their first choice goalkeeper, which sounds like he's broken a bone in his hand, which I don't know how they'll cope with that in the weeks ahead, whether it's just going to be John Thacker that takes the mantle for the foreseeable period. But yeah, I'm sure Dean Donaldson didn't think it was going to be a short-term project.
No, he didn't. And to be fair, this one result doesn't take away from the progress that Locos are making under Dean Donaldson, and of course we'll have to pick out the flag of who they're playing. His former club, you know the Turriff players were going to be well up for this one. I think
form goes out the window in a derby.
a little bit. The players are looking to show their former manager, this is what you've left, and look how good a side we've become. And they scored 3 goals in the last 15 minutes, but showed they were going to the very end and making the most of the space in the park. Even though both sides are down to 10 men by that point, they've clearly exploited the gaps better than Locos managed to.
Okay, Strathspey Thistle 0, Forest Mechanics 2. The headline from this game being that it was Forest Mechanics' first league win since August
19.
Yeah. So Strathspey had an early chance through Ross Logan they didn't take, that was perhaps a bit of a sliding doors moment, and then Ethan Cairns and Shaw Morrison netted the goals that made the difference for Forest. Steve McDonald, when you read his post-match comments, he wasn't hailing it as like the best Forest performance he'd ever seen. With respect to Strathspey, Forest, would probably want to win that game by more goals. But I suppose it's probably one of those, with the way things had been going, that you get the result first and then the performances follow in subsequent games.
It's the old want versus need. Forest were needing a win because of how long that run had been. That we've been so documenting almost every week, and when you're on a run like that, it becomes a habit, and a habit is hard to break, whether you're winning every week or whether you're losing every week. And Forest were just not picking up that 3 points on a Saturday, and it's been really hard for them, and it becomes a pressure cooker almost. It'll be interesting now to see from a Forest point of view how they react now. Is the pressure off? Is the monkey off your back, sort of thing, when they get back to league duty again at the weekend? For Strathspey, I'm sure they're disappointed. They would have been looking at a Forest side maybe lacking a bit of confidence, coming to Seafield Park thinking this is a chance for us to get another 3 points on the board, because they've been more competitive in recent weeks as well. That'll be a disappointment for them that they haven't taken anything from that game, I'm sure.
It's one of those with Strathspey, isn't it? We clearly know this season that under Robert McCormack's management, that Strathspey are nowhere near as far behind as they've maybe been in previous seasons behind other teams. And then the last points mid-November when they drew with Clattenacudden, who are a team sort of around them in the table, perhaps showing similar sort of like performance levels to them week to week. The frustration at the weekend will be Rob McCormack's looking at Forest and going, oh, Forest on the day didn't look that much better than this, but we need to find a way to take something from those games when we're playing teams that don't look that much better than this.
Absolutely. And you can have hard luck stories, but you can't have a season of hard luck stories, if you like, and they need to be picking up points. You don't want a gap opening up, because I think we might have an actual playoff at the end of this season, the way things are looking with the other leagues below, and nobody wants to be that 18th team, because you're going to be facing a side that's full of confidence and looking to win promotion and make an impact next season. So there's a lot of fighting ahead, I think.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the table, we'll come on to Devon Vale's game in a minute, but I mean, Devon Vale 2 places above Strathspey, 6 points ahead of them. Clack 1 point ahead of them on 5 points. Strathspey have got 4 points. So I mean, obviously Clack weren't in action at the weekend, but I mean, it's still tight enough. Still tight enough for Strathspey. Okay, the aforementioned Devon Vale, they lost 3-2 at Keith on Saturday. It was the first Kynick Park win for Keith over Devon Vale for 7 years, we're led to believe. It was 3-0. I mean, 3-2 maybe gives this a bit of a sort of slightly false complexion, although it seemed like it was pretty nervy at the end. But 3-0 until late on. Kieran Yates' strike, a Connor Kilo pen. They were both in the first half. Matty Took then made it 3-0 in 73 minutes. So Keith are 3-0 up with 17 minutes left to play, which Craig Ewan obviously bemoaned from a game management perspective, because it seemed like the 2 goals Devon Vale scored were then products of defensive errors from Keith. Jack Mitchell and Cameron Angus scoring for Vale, and that sets up the nervy finish. I think both camps felt Keith dominated. I wonder if both teams maybe came away from that slightly disappointed, although Keith had the silver lining of actually getting 3 points. I
think so, but if there's a game that summed up the fortunes of both clubs this season, it's this one. How many times have we seen Craig Ewan come out after a game and bemoan game management or not seeing it out, whether it's you get your noses back in front or back in level terms and then you concede straight away. In this case it's 3-0 up, you concede 2 quick goals and then you're hanging on at home at the end. From a Devon Vale point of view, Craig Stewart's side they've been in fits and bursts, and they tend to come into a game and start playing once they're 1 or 2-0 down. In this case 3-0 down, but it's the first goal. You need to be getting the first goal in games. And that's what they need to be doing if they want to move up the table.
I think they're still without a clean sheet since that competition we done on the preview show, which was August time, I think, the last time we got a clean sheet. Okay, one more game to discuss. Lossiemouth 0, Fraserburgh 1 at Grant Park. Sounded reasonably drab, this one, but the headline from it was clear. Scott Barber's winning goal saw him equal Fraserburgh's all-time scoring record, 237 goals, level with Michael Stephen. Sounded like a simple yet effective finish. Rather than talk about the game, I suppose in Highland League terms, Scott Barber surely in that category, like Michael Stephen, where he's going to be one of these players that's talked about and remembered fondly once his playing days are over, although it's maybe a wee while away yet, but you know he's certainly racking up the accolades.
It's club legend status at this point, isn't it? And what's so impressive when you look at how the records match up is Figs hit that 237 mark in a good 100 odd games less than Michael Stephen did, and Mikey was a smashing player in his own right, almost played more as a winger but could cut in and just he fired in so many terrific balls from coming in from the left wing. It was untrue, but Scott's got him in his sights now. He's on level pegging. I'm sure it won't be long until he's got the record in his own right. In a funny way, I think all the build up to chasing this 237 has probably affected him a little bit, because as good a player as he is, he hasn't been so prolific this season so far from what we're used to. But I think now that he's level, and once he goes past it, I'm sure he'll be flying again soon enough. It's natural. If everyone's talking about the record, when you're going to get it, when you're going to get it, he's knocking on the door now, and he'll be breaking it down soon, I'm sure.
Yep. Okay, well, after the 6 games that took place on Saturday, let's have a look at the latest Breedon Highland League standings.